gonna be like, I can't hear me anyway. Good morning, everybody. Welcome to the St. George Real Estate Morning Drive. This is Jesse Paul with the Larkin Group, Keller Williams Realty, and I know you're used to hearing Jeremy's voice this time of day, but we sent him off to actually a CEO retreat that he is holding, not out of town this time, but in our office.
Which is so fun to see all of these big, great minds come together and be in our office and add that energy to our already fun location. And
right,
it was fun yesterday.
Yeah, that was pretty cool energy.
It.
And it's a lot of some of the best real estate minds in the country. Obviously not all of them, but they're some of the greats are at our office this week.
Well, so thank you for having me as your
So now
sub.
we actually get Jessica Marron, one of my favorites, Jessica Taggart Marron.
Sorry, I tell you, I got married so late that it was hard for me to give up my maiden name. You know.
Well, quick story. This will tell you who I am. So my wife went through she went through a lot of stuff with her name, right? Mm-hmm. With her first marriage and just some family stuff. And so she intentionally had a name change right before we met and went to her. And so her name was Leah Francis. Mm-hmm. And it was really important to her. Now, if you know me, I come from a background where for a long time I didn't want to remember. Mm-hmm.
Which is what's so great about you, honestly, is you have such a, sorry, I also have, Sandy clears his throat. It sounds like I'm a smoker these days. I've got this cold, but I love that about you because you are just like the greatest example of redemption walking around.
So.
And
I hope so.
So fun to hear your stories and know that that's so different than the person I know and love. And
yes, let's just say the people that know me today would not even recognize the man that I used to be. But so when we met and we were, when we started talking about getting married, her name was a big deal. Mm-hmm. And I said, well, who says that you have to be the one? I don't care. Like I was pretty disconnected from my family of origin and my last name and and some of the shame that I carried was so deep that I really didn't care. But so at the end of the day, she's like, no, we can't do that, and
so were you thinking of taking her
I was
last
going
name?
to take her last name. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I would have. I absolutely would have and not even looked back or regretted it. However, so now she is Leah Francis Paul. Because she didn't, the same thing, right? She didn't want to lose that connection with her name.
Yeah.
It was a big deal. So she's Leah Francis Paul.
Yeah.
I guess I could be Jesse Francis Paul.
I mean, why not?
It would be good.
We could start a trend. So yes, Jessica Taggart Marron, thanks for having me. It's always a treat. And I was pumping myself up with a little Taylor Swift on the way here. We changed locations since I've been back. And
right. She was upset. By the way, Andy, she was really upset. What do you mean we're not going to the studio?
It's true. It's true.
I love Jessica.
Yeah,
I love having her.
Yeah. Well, the feeling is mutual. And also, as we all know, I come in rolling hot. And so it was even further away from my home.
Right.
But I was here with plenty of time. So I feel like I deserve a gold star.
You were.
Thank you.
Gold star.
That's right.
And so that is true. You were like really early.
Yeah, thank you.
Comparatively, right?
I know. I just need you all to know that I know. And I think I do deserve a little.
What's funny is how do you like, so Jeremy this morning, and by the way, guys, it's not one of those show up last minute things. Of all people.
I know, that's true.
Jeremy's a guy who can show up. If we're going on at 8:35, he can show up at 8:34:59.
It's true.
And roll in like nothing ever happened at all.
Well, and then Jeremy sent us a text message fairly late. I don't even,
it was like 10:45.
Right. And I was asleep at that point, but then I woke up at 2 and I've been up since then. So I responded to the text then, and then you didn't respond that much later. So
yeah.
It's going to be a long day.
You've been up since 2 a.m.?
Dang it, Andy. I don't know what my problem is. Jeremy talks about getting up like 40 times a night to pee.
Oh, yeah,
I think it's
40s.
the time. That's not what my problem was, but I feel like the end is nigh for me and the hormonies. I think I need, if we have women of a certain age listeners, please call me and talk to me.
What do I do?
Yeah, I've been up since 2. So like I said, it's going to be, I might have to take a little snooze. We have a beautiful couch in our office. Well, we have a couple, but there's one that I particularly like. And I have been known to take a nap or two there. So it's all fun and games until someone took a video of me snoring. But it might have to happen today. So
if you didn't wonder, we are like family.
Yes, we are.
We'll sleep
Better for
on
worse.
the couch. We'll have the dogs there, the babies there. You never know what's going to be happening in our office. But when we were talking about this morning about what we should talk about, the subject came up of, and for the lack of better terms, I just said, what are the kisses of death in real estate? Like to a seller or to somebody that's building a home, thinking about selling their home, what are the things that really are showstoppers or sale stoppers?
Right. And I'm feeling a little fresh, some wounds from some of these things that just happened.
So, some of the things that we're talking about aren't even on the Chat GPT list that I pulled.
but
because I wanted to compare.
We had discussed too.
I wanted to compare, like, I wonder what they have to say versus what we were talking about.
But I'm, again, another gold star. You can tell I'm a former educator. All of those reward stickers, but these things we discussed. So
yeah.
Yes, they're feeling a little raw, those wounds still, because definitely these apply to.
Oh, one of them's really big fresh.
Right. Yeah. So one thing I think, or these things that we're going to talk about today could be divided into things that just happen, kind of bad luck or maintenance, those sorts of things. And then other factors, I think people do not look long term, often when they're buying. And so if you were to subdivide these into categories, what do you do when you're a buyer so that one day when you sell this home, you're not paying the price of it? And the first one that we talked about in this list is location.
Yep.
And I have a neighbor, funny story. I sold her the home that she's trying to sell now many years ago. And that's actually how I discovered the neighborhood where I live. And, She was a challenging client. I enjoyed working with her, but she was challenging, and refused to look at some of the points that I brought up
about the house,
about the location, the lot that she chose.
Okay.
Now the lot is not a horrible lot. It's a beautiful subdivision. It's there's other reasons why it's not selling, I think, but it's been on the market twice now and she's withdrawn it. And I've shown it many times. I've tried to sell it. The first thing is I hate that it's right next to the pickleball courts. So she was not thinking long term when she wanted to save $10,000 or $20,000. And I get it. Budget isn't always free flowing for everyone, but for this person it was. And she opted to save that money up front because she didn't think long term of what would happen when she tried to sell the home.
Yeah.
So I think location, we always hear it, location is pivotal. But really look at it a little more granularly before you pull the plug or bite the bullet, whatever euphemism I'm going to use.
And that reminds me of the actual house that brought this whole thing up. I went to a house yesterday. With an extremely steep driveway. Like probably the steepest I've ever seen.
Which is a deal killer in and of itself in St. George all the time.
It's so bad people drive up and literally not go in the house. Yep. Sorry, can't do it. Nope.
I've had people buy different cars because they realized they liked the house enough and they didn't feel like it was, they knew it was steep, but that they could
But once you start living there.
But then they thought, I hate that I'm scraping my car every 2 seconds.
So it's a big deal, right? So, but when you were talking about that, it made me think about this because I know several people before when it still could be changed, said, "Hey, I don't think that's a good idea. Do you realize how big a deal that's going to be?" And the guy just kept saying, "Oh, you don't understand. It's going to be great. You just wait. It's unique. People are going to love it." Right? So he wasn't listening.
And there's definitely times when we need to really follow our own gut, even if people aren't supporting
true,
it.
But I have an
when
old
we're
saying.
looking at a decision that's really going to be expensive or impossible to change, there's time to put some pride aside and really dig deeper and see if they have reason.
Years ago, this guy said something to me and it just stuck. And I've said this before and people laugh about it, but think about it. He said, Jesse, if one guy calls you a saddle, you could probably dismiss him. You could probably tell him to kick rocks. But if you've got 4 or 5 or 6 people calling you a saddle, man, you just better partner up with a horse.
Giddy up. I like that. Nice.
And
saddle
I feel like this is that, right?
I have never been called a saddle yet.
Nor have I.
I've been called a lot of things.
I've been called a lot of things, just never saddle.
But to me, that situation is the same.
Yes, it's true.
Right? Probably several people said, hey.
Want to rethink that.
Hey. But this is what I hate about a really hot market. We make decisions out of fear or desperation.
True.
And whenever we do that, if we really don't make sure we think it through, oftentimes we just make the wrong choice.
Have serious buyer's regret.
So on top of location, I want to talk about one thing that came up: having the biggest house in the neighborhood or the best house in the neighborhood goes on location, right? What is the location and how do you fit in with the norm in the neighborhood?
We're kind of dealing with that right now in the listing that you and I were talking about yesterday, and that there aren't that many homes that size,
that big,
plan.
Right? Yeah.
And so to find comparables in the neighborhood it was almost impossible. And so it's not insurmountable, this issue, but you want to make sure that you're, again, building and you're not going to be kicking yourself later when you're giving your house away or feeling like you're giving your house away
because it's
other
just
people
not.
just can't justify.
Yeah, so true. So number 2 is actually structural issues. And so I would put the driveway in with this, like, even though it's not, it's not a bad foundation
settling or anything, but
it is definitely a structure issue that a buyer's going to have to, it's a big deal to change, especially when you've got a house sitting up on the hill. To reconstruct that whole landscape and to do that over is a big deal.
Too costly. People would just say next on the list.
A couple other things around structural issues would be, how are your windows?
Yeah.
Have they lost their seal?
And that's the frustrating.
Or have a few of them.
Right. Or termites or cracks. And, settling is going to happen in any home. And that is just normal.
But to not take care of that before you hit the market is right. Because buyers, they get, even if it's normal structural, like just cracks, people get nervous. The foundation's bad.
They do.
Oh my gosh. It's bad.
Well, and we've talked about this before. If a repair is $5,000. A buyer thinks it's $2,500, or excuse me, a seller thinks it's $2,500, and a buyer is going to think it's $10,000. It's just I've seen it too many times.
Here's the thing: even if the buyer knows it's $5,000,
they start thinking what else
in their
is there?
mind. They're going to take off $10,000. Okay, the number 4. This is a big one too. Smaller, awkward layout. A good example of that is a 2-story home with all of the bedrooms upstairs.
I've had a lot of people.
It's a big deal.
It is a big deal.
Or you brought one this morning, right?
Excuse me. Yes.
The primary bedroom on the main level and all the other bedrooms on a different level.
And again, this is why it's important when builders build. I wish, maybe a side hustle for us is to consult. Just have that third party that's not, it's just a advice, question thinking, pushback, because you have to think who your buyer is going to be, right? And so a lot of times younger families, they want to have that second bedroom on the main floor as well for a child. Or I've had people say, my parents will come to visit us all the time and they can't do stairs anymore. So this house is out. So not every home, Andy, go ahead.
That might actually be a positive, but never mind.
Yeah, it depends who your in-laws are, right? And again, you can't build for every body, right? I mean, that we know that, but
No, but you have
to think critically, like who is our buyer here? And we
not just what do I like.
exactly. And
what does the norm, what would be the most attractive to the most amount of people in the event that I have to sell this? Because most of us aren't in our homes for a lifetime anymore.
Right.
10 years?
Yeah,
8
that's
to
average,
10 years?
7 to 10 years. So, you remember the listing we took on Four Master. It was a beautiful listing. I mean, it was gorgeous, and it had some really amazing architectural choices, and it was unique. But you start looking at this house, and there's a casita, which I say in quotation, you can't see that unless you're watching us, but a casita that didn't have a closet and was really too small to have anything but a bed in it. So, and then you had to go inside
So it was really just a bedroom.
It was just a bedroom with a bathroom that was not it was attached to the house, but you had to go through the front door to get into the kitchen.
So this is actually a great question.
Yes,
for
and
you.
it drives me crazy as my Spanish teacher ears because, anyway.
In a buyer's mind, Jessica, because you're like probably the buyer expert that I know.
Well, you're so nice to me.
What if a buyer sees casita? What are they expecting when they get to the house?
They are expecting that it be self-contained.
Okay,
in the sense that you could lock it off from the main. It can be attached.
You can get in and out
without going through the house.
What else?
That it has a bathroom.
Okay,
and then it should have a little kitchenette.
Okay, and
it needs to have some space, some closet space.
Okay.
And so a kitchenette, I think, is probably the least important of those because
it's something so they would expect to see it, but it's okay if it doesn't have.
Correct.
Okay.
But when we see a room that's attached that just has an exterior door and they call it a casita, ooh, that chaps my hide, Andy.
Mm-hmm. Okay, and this one isn't.
I hate that.
Yeah, you don't want that. So back to the house, though.
Okay,
this house is great. The primary closet was tiny. The primary bathroom was tiny, and then the only other bedrooms besides the casita. So think this buyer was probably going to have some children, and the bedrooms were the farthest away on the bottom floor, and they were minuscule. And they were frustrated that we couldn't sell this house. And then the stairs were beautifully done architecturally from an architectural standpoint, but they're the planks that are see-through. I mean, and it's like a death trap for children. And so we came onto this project after it was already built, and it was frustrating for them to hear the feedback of, I think you missed the mark of who you're building this for, because this you're really eliminating a lot of people in this buyer pool, or in this price point. So it's really important that you look at those design selections and those layout and really think critically, because it matters. And again, we're not going to be able to build for every buyer out there, but you have to really make sure that you're speaking to the biggest audience that you can to really get the most money. That's the whole goal.
Especially for a builder, because that is the goal right off the bat, right? You're not building this to live in.
Correct.
It is for sale. And one thing that you brought up this morning that comes back to now, that's to me a catch-22, right? Because a builder's going to want to use all of the latest trends. But then a couple years later, when the buyer goes to sell it, if the trend has changed, then it tends to be like, well, uh-oh.
So
because I would have never thought about that one.
I love design, and I don't consider myself a trendy person.
We all know that I'm not.
You have so many other qualities.
Just that's not one of them.
We love you so much, Jesse. And here's the reality: is that most people think they have good taste, but that can't be true. But I do not consider myself a trendy person. I like certain trends, but I don't consider myself a trendy person.
5 minutes, by the way.
Great. Thanks, Andy. So, of course, the builder is trying to showcase. And I think it's really important that builders stay current and ahead of what's happening from a style perspective to stay fresh. But you go show a home from 2007 and, you know, it screams 2007. And so someone now, unless it's priced accordingly, is looking at all of the things that they need to do to update that home.
That's a great era to talk about for the next
ironically, some of those trends are really coming back and in a beautiful way. But it's just important, you know, to think critically. Tile is tricky. That's tough to change. Faucets, lighting, those things are things that you can change more easily that are going to refresh your home. So it's just one of those things where I go into homes with, especially with obviously new construction, and it looks like, oh, this person was on Pinterest and their wife helped them pick out this, and then someone else helped them pick out that, and then they picked out this slab. And so to really be cohesive and neutral in the areas, the surfaces that are really hard and expensive to change, will give that home longevity.
That makes sense.
And then able to change the design aspects that someone else can come in and say, we can paint, we can change fixtures, and it just is easier to sell in the long run.
Yeah, one big one, because you mentioned 2007. During that time, a lot of the Tuscan style was popular, right? And it was beautiful, but it doesn't help with the next topic of the lack of natural light. Right. So when you start getting some of those deep brown colors, they almost absorb the light, where some of your lighter colors will actually reflect it, so that it makes the light room bigger. Right. So when you walk into, if you have a home like this, you have to make sure that you have good bright lights, because when a buyer walks in, if it's dark, it almost changes the whole essence of the showing.
Right. Oh, for sure.
Right.
For sure. In fact, and, you know, back to color drenching is a huge design, you know, I don't want to say trend right now, but it's something you see a lot, and it's beautiful. And so, I mean, dark colors still have a place in homes for sure.
But if you have them, you have to counteract for the
with
light.
A lot of natural light, you have to think critically about that as well. And but that's about getting ready to stage or ready to list your home. I encourage people to replace all the light bulbs in their home, and they feel like that's going over the top. But I promise, when you have half of a fixture filled with cool light bulbs and another half of it with warm,
and then one
lights
missing,
and one missing.
So I have a question
it's
for you.
It's going to show differently than if they're all the same.
One of my now in a newer home, you won't see this, but one of my biggest pet peeves is when you're walking through a house and all of the switches are different colors or different shades. I'm like, guys, this is so cheap to fix. We should these should all match.
Yeah. Yeah.
That and the dirt that builds up on baseboards.
Sideboards, yeah.
I'm like, man, we should fit, because those are so easy to fix. Excuse me, I've just got something in my throat.
1 minute.
So it is important. Do you need a little? Are we sponsored by Diet Coke? Can I say that?
So real quick, I want to talk about Sunwood Homes.
Yes, thank you.
The new project.
And if you, yes, so Sunwood Homes, we have been working with them now for 4 years. And it's been such a delight. They have done some beautiful projects, and they've had parade homes out there. So we are finishing up. We did Desert Flower, a phase of Desert Flower, switched to another project. We just are selling Desert Ridge. We just sold our last townhome there. And now we're going back to Desert Flower phase 2, and they're single family homes. They're beautiful. The first 2 that we're going to have on the market are 2,400 square foot ish, and great views of Pine Valley Mountain. So please let us know what questions you have about it. If you're looking for something, they're really unique. I'm excited to get them on the market. Jesse,
so if you have questions about those, Google the Larkin Group, or you can Google mysunwoodhomes.com. And we'd love to answer them.
Builders, they want to make, they just want to make you happy, and they've got the best of both worlds of small town builder, but a lot of experience. So it's fun to work with.
All right.
them.
Well, guys, we sure appreciate you. This has been Jesse Paul and Jessica Taggart Marron with the Larkin Group, Keller Williams Realty.
It's a treat.
Over and out.